ないか。ダメだリコ。一旦ブレイズリーブのあたりまで動こ。
Oops! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Castaway Anime. I'm NeonManta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And we're finishing our long, arduous journey down into the depths of Made in Abyss Season 1, getting prepped for Season 2 just around the corner. And, woo boy, has it been a journey.
Dude, I cannot wait till Season 2 comes out. Like, that is probably my #1 hyped show of the season. I don't actually know what's coming out that season. In case you couldn't tell from the fact that I've seen this show 5 times and counting, I'm a huge fan of it, and I think I made that pretty clear in the first video, and in this podcast, I'm going to be talking it up even more, especially because this block of episodes features my favorite arc of the entire series. Granted, I haven't rewatched the movie in a while, but at least going off of memory and what I saw today, actually, this is my favorite arc of the series.
Yeah, I will say this second half of the show is interesting to me because I think it contains both the weakest part of Season 1 and also by far the strongest part of Season 1.
I think we're going to agree on what the weakest part is.
Yeah, so I think we should, we've already established all the stuff from the first podcast, which you haven't seen already. Got a card in the corner right here to check out our review of the first 7 episodes. If you haven't done so already, because we're going to be jumping right into it with episode 8 and not taking 15 minutes to get right into the to talking about the show this time. We're looking at a solid 2.
We're going to subvert our entire trope of the podcast by going right into it. Is it even Castaway Anime if they don't delay the point?
Only the best, only the most highest brow, highest analytical grade quality content you'll get on Castaway Anime on the NeonManta YouTube channel.
So episode 8,
episode 8 is pretty good, all things considered.
I'd even say it's pretty fucking great, especially with the ending. It's basically sort of wrapping up where we left off last podcast at episode 7, where they train under Ozen by basically being thrown out into the wilderness and being like, here, survive for 10 days, hone your skills, and we're going to watch to make sure you don't die, except if you do die, Ozen's not going to stop you dying, because she's, her rationale is sort of, if you die here, you were going to die anyway, so I'm just going to let you die here and, not let you continue hoping. And then after that, they survived their training, and Ozen tells them the secrets of the abyss passed down from White Whistle to White Whistle, and then they get thrust into the 3rd layer of the abyss after a very emotional goodbye to Marulk.
Yeah, as far as their training goes, though, I do have one major criticism. What did they learn?
They learned teamwork by basically having to work together for an extended period of time. Because
were they not already doing that?
That is a good point. That is a fair thing to bring up.
I was gonna say, I remember not being I remember their training feeling like a roadblock when I first watched the show 5 years ago when it came out, and now that I have matured and able to analyze shows and parse their information a lot more clearly and in my own head, I'm like, yeah, all they really did was they caught a hippo, and like a weirdly animated hippo that was CG at first, and that's it, Jack. Like, what else did they do?
I actually didn't. I didn't think it was CG at any point in that. I thought it actually
when it was in the pond, when it was out of the pond, it was better. We don't get to the bad CG until the next episode, but
oh yeah, well that's when it gets pure crust. But yeah, I didn't notice any CG, at least for the hippo. So maybe it's there, maybe it isn't. Okay, like under the water.
I think it was coming out to try to bite Rico, and Reg was able to pull her out of the way just in time.
Okay, to be fair, that is a brief cut of animation, so it makes sense if I missed it. But I guess it would have been better, yeah, if Ozen had given them a more specific test. And here's another reason why I say that, because Ozen is basically lauded by Liza in the flashbacks as like this amazing teacher. Like, you're completely irredeemable, Ozen. You suck. You're an awful person. I hate you, but also you're the best trainer I've ever had. And
Yeah,
here she just kind of.
It's kind of implied by Ozen and through the flashbacks that apparently Liza is stronger than Ozen. Not in terms of physically, because she's like touted as being Ozen the immovable, but in terms of like when that flashback of Liza discovering Ozen beaten up by foreigners, and then Liza got her revenge on all of them. Like, does that not imply that in some way, shape, or form she could beat Ozen in a fight?
Oh, it's not even just that. She is out, like, that isn't even just subtext. That's main text, where in episode 3, if you remember that, it was basically, I think, the leader, like, the mayor of the village, or something like that. Some kind of...
Leader was like, oh yeah, she got her revenge on an attacking nation of foreigners.
No, not leader. Not that leader, but, like, a different leader who was, like, helming
the
like
the performer? He was like a performer.
Okay, yeah, and he was basically like, but the mightiest among them all, or whatever. Liza, I think, Annihilator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's basically saying, like, she's the strongest, she could kick Ozen's ass, maybe not in hand-to-hand combat, but overall is just, like, a better cave raider than her. And so, yeah, that's definitely the case.
Yeah, we're going back to the main crux of their training. All they did was catch a hippo, and they didn't really learn any new skill or like mechanic about the abyss to be like, okay, we can like game the system to our advantage now. No, they just like stayed in the forest for 10 days, caught a hippo, ate it, and and Ozen was like, all right, ship them off. They're ready.
You know, if I were tasked to write an Ozen training arc, I feel like I would make some like completely sadistic trial indicative of Ozen's personality. But I think also what the author was going for was like, we haven't really explored the second layer of the abyss as much as I would like. So here we're going to put their training in this little secluded area so we can just get more of a feel for the animals and the environment around the abyss. So I guess it's sort of a like world building versus character and like making more sense thing.
Here's the fucked up thing about that though. I feel like the author did a way better job, and by extension the studio did a better job of that in the next episode, where we spend the entirety of it in the third layer. And even then, in that we only spend one episode's worth of time in the third layer in its entirety. We are all, by the end of episode 9, we are done with the third layer. We're already down to layer 4. And I'm like, huh? Where?
Okay, we'll get to that when we get to that, because I think I have an explanation for you to sort of answer your question there. But going back to the training arc, you know, I do get what you're saying, and I do agree with your point on a basic level, and I think it could have definitely been elevated. But I also think that, like, it isn't, you know, completely horrible or bereft of merit. Although I know you're not saying that, but like it's basically to give them more time in order to hone their teamwork. Because how much time do they really spend in the first layer? Like a day. How much time do they spend in the second layer going to Ozen's camp? Like at most like a few days or something like that. So what they're basically given here is 10 straight days of practice. And I think that's the core of what Ozen's training is trying to get at, where they're basically being given more time in a safer environment to get a stronger footing and hone their team dynamic and group work in order to tackle the future depths of the abyss. And in that sense, I don't think it's an awful training arc, or that the ideas behind it are necessarily all that... They're not fundamentally flawed, but they're also like, it could be better.
I get that, but also at the same time, like, she's, even if Ozen's goal was like, all right, we just got to get you like used to the abyss somewhat, just like by spending an extended amount of time in this one layer. A lot of fucking good that does when they spend the next 2 episodes, and therefore by extension the rest of the series, kind of getting their shit pushed in by the abyss. Reg and Rico get like fucking knocked around by the third layer, and then we'll get to it when we get to it. But when they get to layer 4, Rico takes the worst of it. So like like in terms of like the audience, like what did we get out of their training? And also I guess by extension the characters, like, oh yeah, that 10 days well spent, and when we're just gonna get fucking destroyed by the abyss anyway.
In fairness, to your argument, actually, I also think episode 3 is in some ways just a redone version of sort of the lessons this training arc is meant to instill in the characters, and also one that more effectively gets the point across to both the viewer and also Rico in particular in the third layer of the abyss in that episode. Singular, emphasis on singular.
Yeah, the training just kind of seemed like a bit of a waste. Although it was all worth it to get to that one scene when they're eating dinner back at Ozen's place, and she's fucking hunched over the entire time, and then when she finally leans back up, she fucking cracks her entire body back into place with the most satisfying sound, and I was like, ooh, I feel
that
things.
Scene, all right, that dinner scene in particular is probably some of my favorite moments of characterization for Ozen, because she smacks both of them in the face so hard that like their foreheads are steaming and like the entire screen flashes black in order to indicate the slap.
Well, I feel like that's just like a typical trope in anime, because Rico was just getting
also
a little too handsy for her, and she was like, okay, no, and then Reg made a joke about her, and then she's like, all right, fuck you.
But something about the way that the joke is sort of communicated, I don't know, something about that really gets me in terms of Ozen's character, and also like her demeanor, like her general demeanor in that scene, especially the neck pop though. That is just brutal. It
wasn't even her neck; it was her entire back. She's like hunched. She was like a fucking hunchback, and then she just like straightened herself out, like, oh, and she's like, and then resumed talking as normal.
That was a fucking monstrous pop. That's like chiropractic on yourself.
And then the dinner scene also lend us into insight on how the abyss we learned that it can not only just fuck with your like body in terms of hallucinations and whatnot, but it can even fuck with your sense of time, and how a few weeks can pass by in what feels like a few months.
Yeah, it seemed like the characters in the show, like Ozen, isn't sure if time literally moves slower at the lower layers, or if it's just your sense of time going mad. The show sort of leaves that open to interpretation, and I think we'll eventually maybe not get a solid answer to that, but maybe, understands that more as we delve deeper into the abyss.
And as we delve deeper into the abyss, we'll find out more about the 3 remaining white whistles down at the bottom that Ozen lends us hints about. We get introduced to the Sovereign of Guidance, Wakuna the Chosen, the Sovereign of Mystery, Srajo the Mysterious, and the Sovereign of Dawn, Bondrewd the Novel. Which we know, because we've seen the movie already, that we'll introduce to one of the, and also the later episodes of season 1, that we're introduced to one of these characters, but we're probably going to meet one, if not both, of the remaining white whistles in season 2.
Srajo the, I think, Mysterious, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
I like his design because he has a cool-ass Plague Doctor mask. That's pretty badass. I can't wait to see him. He looks fucking
I might
cool.
be misremembering this. Was Wakuna like a cat girl or something? I remember seeing something. I'm associating cats
girl.
with. I remember associating something with cat with Wakuna for whatever reason.
I don't remember that detail, but maybe it is.
Here, you talk about the Blaze people. I look up the silhouette of Wakuna again, because I need to see why my brain is thinking of this.
All right, so Ozen also gives them, along with her pieces of white whistle advice and all of the knowledge they know, she also gives them a pickaxe called the Blaze Reap, which basically it's a pickaxe, but it explodes. And that's what the weapon does. And it used to belong to Liza, but she basically dug the weapon a burial. Because the outer casting of it is fucked, and so it's kind of in bad condition, but nonetheless, it's good to have another weapon. And I guess while Neon's still away looking for that,
I just found it. Okay,
you found it. Okay.
I just found out why I thought it was a cat. It was I was thinking more of like a lion because their hair in the silhouette that we see is like flowing behind them, almost like the mane of a lion. But they're also wearing kind of like a sailor cap, for lack of a better term. It's kind of similar to the helms that we see Bondrewd and his gang use, but it's that's why I thought cat.
All right. The last note I have about this episode is that there's this one flashback about Ozin and Liza, and there's the one shot. You can tell they really wanted this shot to stick, where the sunlight is hitting Liza's face, and it looks completely fucking beautiful. It's like the one. It reminds me of the one shot from ReZero where the sunlight hits Rem's face, where it's like they clearly wanted that specific image to stick in your mind. And it worked. It's a really, really beautiful shot. It really looks great. And it's, it hits out just the perfect line. Like, I think I have it quoted exactly here. Tell her so that she knows how much of a miracle it took to make her move in the first place. What Liza is referring to there is the fact that Riko was stillborn, but through a relic in the abyss, she was brought back to life. And originally, Ozin was, basically using it to horrify the children, being like, you're just a walking corpse, Riko. You aren't even alive. You could stop moving at any moment. You could literally die. And Liza's turning that around as sort of a positive, beautiful miracle of the abyss.
Yeah, like, isn't it cool how my daughter could die at any moment, but just doesn't? Despite, like, all of the things that, like, she should be dead. It's a miracle. It, like, speaking of Liza, what I wanted to say about her reveal is that I love everything about her design except those fucking blonde eyelashes that I just can't get over. It looks like there's fuzz around both of her eyes. I remember even back in 2017 I was like, I don't like that. But then again, I never like it when a character in anime has like colored eyelashes that cover the entire circumference of their eyes.
That didn't really bother me at all, and overall, I think her design is incredible.
Oh, I love her hair. I love how long,
hair.
Blonde curly locks.
Oh, her hair is beautiful,
and like her cap with a feather in it, just really really cool. She does look like this is the woman that Riko will one day grow up to be.
Yeah, and then after that. Basically all we have left is the scene of them leaving Marulk behind, which, to be fair, Marulk isn't really much of a character. He just kind of exists enough to stick out in your mind, but not enough to be interesting. But the way... I think it's the soundtrack. And also them, like, staring into the giant hole.
Yeah, they're playing Hanazeve Kafare, whatever it's called, right? The one where it's like... the song that played when Riko took Reg to see the town of Orth with the Abyss at like by that windmill.
I'm not actually I don't remember exactly what song it is. That does sound.
It's the one. It's the one with like the fake made up language lyrics. That's like da, 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 like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one.
So yeah, that sounds right to me. And, they're staring into the hole. I think it's just the way the scene is framed and this music that's playing over it that manages to touch my heartstrings every single time. I'm not sure if it was good enough to play in its entirety right before episode 9, but it is a very well done scene overall.
But before we jump into episode 9, I did want to touch back on Liza one more time and talk about... I want to pose this question to you. Do you think Liza was being selfish in her pursuit to the bottom of the abyss, abandoning Riko?
That is an incredibly difficult question.
Because I posed in the last podcast that how I think she's incredibly similar to Rose Quartz from Steven Universe in the fact that they both gave up everything for their children, but while simultaneously abandoning them to they abandoned them to different fates, because while they're both kind of parentless, the difference with Rose is that at least she left him with a family that cared for Steven and also his father, and didn't exactly anticipate a war to be brought to his doorstep, but that's just kind of what happened. Whereas Liza abandoned Rico to an orphanage with no family, and just like, hey, when the time is right and she wants to adventure down into the abyss, I want to give her that freedom to do so and not hold her back in any way.
To be fair, it is a little slapdash, and I think she is being a little selfish, a little, not thinking things through as well as she could. It's also a question of, would Rico have been better off with Liza? Would Liza make a good mother in the first place? Because she's, I mean, we're told, like, she's a complete scoundrel, a bit of a drunk, starts fights constantly. She isn't exactly a good role model in any sense, except that she is adept at navigating the abyss. So it's like, would Rico really be better in the hands of this person? Well, we're not sure yet, at least at this point of the in the series.
I love it when Ozen points out to Liza, it's like that seems like a lot of noble like talk, but it's you just want to go down to the bottom of the abyss yourself, don't you? And she's like, yep. She's not even trying to hide. It's like, yeah. I need to see what's at the bottom, bro. And it's gonna be hard if I have my daughter with me, so gonna have to just drop her off at the nearest fire station.
So I guess even if the end product doesn't end up being, as bad, like, let's just assume for a second that the orphanage was the best option for her to be raised. I guess the motive is still selfish at its core.
Yeah, it's definitely, I find it interesting, the fact that she's doing this to, like, in her eyes, she's doing this in Rico's best interest. She truly believes that, like, if she were to stay on the surface, she would quell Rico's ambition to one day journey into the abyss, just like Liza did. And she doesn't want to deprive that or deny that right to Rico in any way. So she truly feels that if she were to just leave her and go down into the abyss herself, then Rico will not lose that drive to adventure herself. And her being able to selfishly abandon her and go down to see what's at the bottom of the abyss, it just happens to be a convenient byproduct of that decision.
Yeah, I guess it is like a lot of, very interesting character motivations and kind of a difficult question, honestly.
Yeah, and then we'll find out throughout the course of the series that maybe Liza did not make the smartest decision in the world, but I guess it's open to interpretation.
At least for now, anyway. So did you want to move on to episode 9?
Yeah, let's talk about the worst episode of the series.
Okay, I wanna start this off with my history with this episode, because boy is it a doozy. When I first watched,
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to see if you agree with me ahead of time. Do you also think this is the worst episode of the series?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. All right, go ahead.
So, when I first watched Made in Abyss, all the way back, like, over 2 years ago at this point, all right? This was, ironically enough, the episode that sold me on Made in Abyss. I liked it before a lot, but this was when I finally, truly fell in love with the show. And it's not even that it was my favorite episode up to that point. It was just that I thought the third layer conceptually was just so fucking cool. It's just a big fuck off hole, right? It's a big fuck off hole.
Dude, it's literally Minecraft. It's literally the fucking like.
How?
I wrote in my notes that it's kind of like, aside, like, how you dig down and you find all of these like caverns and mines and it's a
that
big
is a
mine
very
shaft.
tenuous connection to Minecraft.
Well, okay, in the sense of like, in the abyss you're always going down, but like, the third layer in particular, because it's just a shaft. It's just one giant stone shaft all the way down, and there's a bunch of holes dotted along the sides. And the way they can't exactly just climb down the vertical wall, because like it's a steep fucking cliff.
Yeah.
So they have to jump from hole to hole, and these holes happen to dig their way down to other holes connecting outward at lower levels. So like just exploring it via that way is already fucking cool. But like seeing all of like the monsters they'll find inside the caves, tell me it is not kind of like you're going down into the mine shafts in Minecraft and you're looking for treasures, like you're looking for those diamonds, looking for those lapis, that redstone, and you just happen to come across some zombies, some creepers, some skeletons. Granted, in this world you'll find like animals and monsters more often than you're gonna find the zombies and whatnot. But still, tell me it's not like a little bit reminiscent.
I guess you can make that connection. It's very tenuous, but I guess it works.
I will also say Minecraft does not have airships, remnants of airships that get embedded into the mines and then just become extensions of it. That was a fucking cool setting in the third layer.
Great. So even, rewatching it for this, the fourth layer may have it beat in terms of aesthetics, but I really, really like, the look and feel of this specific place going into the ruins of the airship. There's like these black rock pillars near the bottom where like Rico has to climb up near the end, and that's a really cool set piece. These little fucking furry raccoon shits in the walls.
I called them rabbit pancakes.
That's a good name. That's it.
They have like, I think they're called like Nirumen or something. I can't remember.
I don't remember their names.
It started with an N, but like I just called them rabbit pancakes.
You've got the rabbit pancakes in the walls, so like the docile creatures in these little nooks and crannies, whereas the sky is just taken over by the Crimson Split Jaws and the Madoka Jacks, if I recall correctly. Yeah, Madoka Jacks.
Yeah, the Puella Magi Madoka Jacks.
That's exactly what I thought. So I liked the setting so much. Because so the first layer and the second layer, they're both cool, right? They're both well done. But this was the first layer where I was like, this is so cool that the setting alone makes me love this episode. But then I rewatched it, and I had some very specific problems, namely to do with two letters that you may have heard of in anime that are constantly complained about, that really got on my nerves in a few specific scenes in this episode that looked really janky. And I also, let's just be real, this is the most extraneous episode of the entire show. Like,
yes, like honestly, the CG is not even the worst part of it. I just think Rico's a fucking retard in this episode for no good reason.
All right, so here's...
Literally just stay with Reg! She's
right.
They give an excuse to be like, oh, Rico's I'm hungry, I need to go find food and I'll carry Reg with me. But she never finds food and she still is able to like be with Reg. She's not like gonna die of starvation in 2 hours. Like there's no ticking clock, and she's clearly shown that staying put is way safer than venturing forward, even when she's at that fucking hill.
All right,
like
so I've heard from one of my friends. His name's MV Pacino. He's cool as shit, by the way, and he's a huge Made in Abyss fan. It is his second favorite show of all time, behind Monogatari. All right, and he's read the manga too, and he said that in the manga, the third layer was massively rushed. It is a hugely rushed arc. The author literally ran out of time to write it. Because as we know, the Made in Abyss is, it takes forever for a chapter to come out, and I presume he waited too long for this arc and ended up, hitting the wall that is the schedule and had to rush this arc out. It is so rushed.
I might be wrong about this.
It is so rushed, in fact.
I think...
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, I think I remember by the time Made in Abyss Season 1 ended, there were like 40-ish chapters. And I think we are currently in Made in Abyss right now. I think we're in like the 60s. To give you an idea of like in the 5 years that have passed, I think we've gone up from the 40s to the 60s in terms of chapter counts.
It is a very slow releasing manga. But the third
Yeah.
layer is so rushed, in fact, that this episode has a lot of anime original content in it. One episode.
That makes sense.
One episode, and they all. This layer is so short that they had to pad it out with anime original content just to get it past.
So what the fuck happened in the manga? What did they add? What did they add to the anime to pad it out?
This is what I've heard. So granted, maybe I'm misremembering what he said. Maybe it's a bad source, and I need to do my research and get on the grind with the Maiden Abyss.
Research on Castaway anime? You preposterous.
Hell no.
You crazy talk.
But if I'm remembering this right, this episode is around, a third to a half anime original content, and the manga was just that rushed. So that explains why it's so extraneous and why it only really narratively serves to further impart the lessons that the second layer and the training arc were supposed to impart in both of them, which is that they're, better together and need to work together. The entire point of Riko I'm just going to be honest, being a fucking retard and going out on her own is that she's supposed to learn I need reg. I can't do this alone because she's very plucky, confident, energetic. She knows her stuff. She knows, she thinks she can navigate the abyss just with her knowledge and all that good stuff. But this arc basically is supposed to show her that, like, no, you can't do it alone. Supposed to take a hit to her pride and be like, you need Reg with you. He's got the robot arms. He's gonna get you down there.
I was gonna say, now that you pointed out that this episode is like half filler, that entire flashback scene to Ozen's incinerator advice from when she left them at the training camp, that goes on for like at least a minute, makes a lot more sense that it was there now, because Kinema was just like, oh god, we gotta pad this out as last we can, quick, pull a My Hero Academia and just reuse this scene that we've seen like 2 episodes ago.
I didn't remember it lasting an entire minute. But yeah,
it's that whole thing in its entirety about her being like, "Hey, that I forbid you from using that incinerator. If you do, you like Riko's gonna fucking die, dude. And if you do have to use it, make sure that the thing that's coming after you is never gonna come back again."
Yeah, with that sort of context, it kind of makes sense why they'd flashback for so long. And okay, so you said that the CG wasn't the biggest problem, right?
The biggest problem it wasn't the biggest problem for the episode. It was still bad to see.
Yeah, but it wasn't the biggest problem with the episode. Honestly, I think that is kind of the biggest problem with the episode. And I know it's only in a few short scenes, but Maiden Abyss's atmosphere in particular is such like a big appeal to me that when it's completely missing for a few scenes, it sort of just completely derails the entire thing in a sense.
I agree.
And so it's very jarring and very, very hard to sort of build back up that atmosphere in your head, get re-entranced in the setting once you've seen these idiotic, crude...
You spent all this time building up this atmosphere and this world with all these realistic monsters. Well, not realistic in the sense that they actually look like, as fantastical as they are, they belong in the same dimension as our characters that inhabit it. And then you introduce these fucking aliens that are able to get one more dimension than our heroes, and it's like, all right, well, you've just completely killed the mood of the scene, because now my eyes and therefore my thoughts are distracted by these CG abominations.
But what's even weirder, right, is that they just have these like bizarre physics. Like they drop in ways that look just weird as hell. Like they look.
Yep.
My dog is barking so loud. And then there's one real. This is super nitpicky, right? Like we're picking that nit incredibly hard, but this has bothered me every single time I've watched the episode, and I've tried to convince myself it's good, but I just can't. There's this one part where Riko gets stuck in like this giant ball thing. I forget what it's called, but it has stomach acid. That's
yeah, she and Reg do get vored.
Yeah, you can say it that way.
they fall into the blowhole mouth of like a giant blob monster, and they technically do, by definition, are getting vored.
Okay, thanks, Neon. But she basically stabs her way out. The sound effects the monster makes, I don't know what it is about it, but it just sounds weird. Like in a way that I don't.
Did it sound
like.
too much like a person was trying to sound like a blob monster and not like an actual monster sound?
That wasn't even it. It just sounds kind of like almost hollow, like there isn't enough impact to her knife strikes because of the sound it makes. Is just, I don't know. It's weird to try and put into words, but I just don't like the sound effect. I haven't liked it. Even the first time I watched the show, I was like, I don't like that sound effect. Second time, still don't like it. Third time, can I convince myself I like it? No, I can't. Fourth time, same story. It's just, I don't get it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, there are some cute moments in this episode. Like, I like how Rico, barely giving a fuck, just grabs a bunch of the rabbit pancake creatures and tosses them out of a hole like bait to lure away the Madoka Jack like mantis bat monsters, so that way they could climb down to another hole in safety.
I knew you were going to mention that scene as soon as you started the sentence, before you had even mentioned what the scene was about. And then
because it's moments like that like lends itself to like, yep, these are the morals that which this character and this world occupies, of which like she does be like, she even says like, man, I would much rather have eaten you, like cooked you up in a delicious meal, but you know, gotta do what I gotta do, and just like yeets them all out and just use them as live bait, not even like without barely any hesitation. Her only regret is that she cannot cook them herself.
there's this one part,
Which she has already done at several points.
There's this one part where it's basically going back on one of Ozen's monologues, and she's like, weaklings have no choice but to follow the path of the weak. What is anime's obsession with this specific phrase? Like, there was an entire speech about this in No Game, No Life, and I swear I've heard it in like 50 other shows, even though I can't name them off the top of my head. Like, why does this specific thing
like a
seem so
Japanese
common?
thing.
Yeah. Admittedly, the ending scene where Rico is climbing the staircase and she's like hallucinating, that always gets me. You know, the soundtrack, the just the way it's portrayed, full on going into the like flashback scene. She's like, I need Reg. Everything is portrayed to be as emotional as possible.
Even when she like is in her hallucination, is being hailed as a hero. She made it to the abyss, she found her mother, they're reunited, her mom's alive, and she's like coming back, and then she like stops in her tracks being like, where's Reg? Like, this whole journey is pointless if Reg's not with me, and shows just how much she cares.
Yeah, and that's the thing that triggers her to realize that, hey, I need this Reg boy.
Yeah, that gives her it gives her her fucking anime cool guy moment where she's like, it doesn't fucking matter, and then she fucking lets out the scream, makes that final ascent up that hill, and is able to overcome the curse.
And then there's the Crimson Split Jaw reappearing, and I kind of like how Rico's just like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why do you keep on following me? Just get the fuck away. I don't know, just
and then,
the way that line was delivered was pretty funny to me.
I liked the part where Rico was motivated by the smell of food, and when she was like at she physically could not drag Reg anymore, but the idea of like, wait, there's this fruit, I can smell it, and then she like drags him even like harder than she did before. It is very, very anime to have the main character be motivated by food.
Yeah.
I like that the rabbit pancakes pack themselves in a hole so that way nothing can get through, like when Reg and Rico were trying to push through the hole to escape the split jaw. I thought that was cute. And then like another cute thing of like world building, that yep, this is what these creatures just do in this world.
Yep. Overall, I'd say that the episode is actually a little better than it existed in my memory. No, it's still a good episode. It definitely is the weakest of the show, but I'd give it like a 7, maybe, strong 7 even.
it's definitely the worst episode. Even back when I was watching the show way back when, for the first time, I remember being like, "Huh, this kind of felt like a nothing episode." And it could have all of this could have easily been avoided if Rico wasn't just stupid and just stayed put with Reg.
I think honestly, I would have liked just a little more happening in the third layer because it's such a cool spot. Like I could have spent more episodes in here. Granted, the layout of it doesn't really allow for much. Where it's basically just a fuck off sinkhole.
And just put a character in there.
True.
Just put like a character that we don't ever have to see them again, or like do something with like some of the animals. Like maybe Rico gets attached to like an animal and wants to reunite it with its family or something. I don't know. Just like something to at least make it stick out more than it reduces like the majesty and like the oppressiveness of the layer to have these kids, even though if one of them's a robot that lets you cheat going down to the abyss, it still kind of cheapens the impact of the abyss to be like, oh, this third layer that's like reserved for like mid to high tier, like high mid tier to low high tier cave raiders. One episode done, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that is a fair thing to say. It's just such a cool location. I wish we could have spent longer in it. And, me missing that we didn't spend longer in it, I don't think is necessarily a positive in this case. Sometimes I miss, sometimes I want more episodes in a specific location, but it's like a testament to how cool it is. Here, it's like, yeah, it is a testament to how cool it is, but it's also like, it just feels weird that we've only spent one episode here.
Yep. But now we have reached the fourth layer, the Goblet of Giants, and once again, yet another fucking amazing setting with these giant mushroom-looking plants that are like they curve upwards to be like bowls in just the slightest way, so that way they can hold this really hot water, and then water falls off the side, and they have a bunch of like smaller platforms growing along the stem of the mushrooms.
There was this one line of dialogue that really sort of brought the place to life for me during this watch, which was when Rico said it smells kinda like vinegar, which is such a specific sensory detail that it's just very unique and immediately made me go like, okay, this place, I can just imagine myself in it. And, you've got all these cups, like you said, capturing the water. It's just such a cool locale. All the steam everywhere.
It lends it a sense of authenticity for our characters and therefore the audience for them to describe it in such a one-word, simple way. Don't need to go any deeper into it than just, it smells like vinegar. And that's such a distinct scent that we all know. And it's like, oh, okay. So this is the kind of idea of the place that we're in right now.
There's this one part where Rico's like, oh, this place... we're at the fourth layer, Sugoi, but like her voice wavers as she says Sugoi, and it's like one of the most authentic sounding and great pieces of like voice work in the show, I think.
Because she's getting herself tired out because she's sweating up a storm because it's so hot and humid down there.
To me, it's like a mix of like majesty at the locale,
and exhaustion.
Yeah, also exhaustion, but like majesty at how far we've come. And the place literally around us, and also it's so hot here, and I'm tired, and this is like a horrible place in a lot of ways, but also it's like so beautiful, like, and also it's just really good voice acting. And later, as in very soon, we'll learn a thing or two about good voice acting.
And yeah, once again, we see the dichotomy between Rico and Reg, while Rico is just in awe of the majesty of the abyss, while Reg remains stoic and cautious of like looking around, just getting like the lay of the land and being like, okay, this is what this place is like. Gotta be on the lookout for anything that might get us. Kind of like, I don't know, maybe perhaps a lion monster that we see from the ED that makes his very first appearance in the show.
Every time I rewatch Made in Abyss, just seeing Orby fills me with dread. What's even weirder, right, is that you think, since I've seen this show 5 times at this point, The following scene, you'd
'Cause,
think
like, you're-
it'd lose
You're
its
hoping
impact.
every time you watch it, that's like maybe something different will happen. Maybe this time Rico won't get impaled by the barbs.
No, even more than that. Each time you'd think, like, okay, the shock wears off a little bit more. Wrong. So wrong.
Yeah, this is where the fucking shoe drops, and it's like, oh, this is how out of our depth our characters are. Because all it takes is for Rico to get poisoned, but it's not even just necessarily a poison. It's just like she gets stabbed and the poison's a byproduct. But all it takes is just one mistake to be like, oh, look, everything's literally going the worst possible way it could.
This is probably my favorite scene in the entire show. And it's not a pleasant scene to watch in some regards. But
It's one of the best in this.
It is just such a visceral and horrifying experience. Like what I
Wait,
think of.
But before we dive into it real quick, I just have one more question. Am I crazy? Since when did they have that umbrella?
I'm trying to remember.
Like, what? Am I taking crazy pills? Like, did they always have that umbrella shield?
I guess they must have packed it with them when they left for the abyss, because I know,
Like,
Rico
she
carries a
calls it the
backpack
scaled
everywhere.
umbrella, and like we also see it show up in the ED, but like I don't remember them using it at all up until this point.
Maybe it's in the
So
manga?
I'm also trying to remember if I like Mandela effect remembered seeing them carry it in their bag on their person throughout their journey up until this point, but I'm drawing a blank. I can't help but think that Kinema Citrus is like either deep faking us or pulling like the greatest practical joke of all time, and just like, oh no, what, they totally had this umbrella. It's not just a thing we put in this episode. And what are you gonna do? Go back and check the other episodes? You can't. We're too busy making Rico bleed out of every orifice of her body.
I'm not sure if the umbrella was there before. I don't remember it.
Well, I guess it's just according to Keikaku, you can't be thinking about that because Rico is currently dying.
Every time I watch this scene, it just makes me more sick to my stomach than the last time I watched it. Actually, fun anecdote, right? One of my friends, I got her to watch Made in Abyss. She hates this scene with a passion just because of how visceral it is. You hate it?
Same. No. I also have a friend who we got to watch Made in Abyss, and she made it to this scene, and she was like, she fucking hates it. She doesn't like gore in general, and the show to this point has not been very gory. We've seen a guy have his corpse eaten out by this bird monster, but even then, it's still kind of reserved and held back. This one, no. We see her bleed out of every orifice, later even confirming that yes, she did in fact piss blood out her pussy.
You know, I'm really glad that this show, because a lot of the lolly piss fetishists, they take the creative liberty to make the piss yellow, but in my experience, red is the more accurate color for the piss. At least in my personal experience.
I mean, that's just called a period. Hey, congratulations. Both you and Rico are finally women now.
Incredible. So, when I think of gore and anime, the next show that comes to my mind is like ReZero, right? And people are like, "Oh, it's so horrifying." Honestly, I don't even flinch at the horror or like all the gore and stuff in ReZero. I mean, a little bit at like the REM scene where she's like crawling in like her stretched out body. But then I remember the one meme where they put it on a twister thing, and then I burst out laughing.
Well, like here's the difference I think between ReZero gore and Made in Abyss gore. With ReZero, I can't. Maybe we'll catch flack from the ReZero fans, but I can't help but feel like it's mostly gore for the sake of being like dark and edgy. Cause not to say that by the time we're deep into ReZero and getting attached to these characters, that seeing these bad things happen to them, it's like we feel for them and feel like bad to see them get fucked up in this sort of way. But like with because the story of ReZero is specifically designed to be around, okay, Subaru can return by death. He can die and then respawn to an earlier part in his timeline. So this gives us an excuse to maim not only him, but all of his friends, because as long as he just respawns, he'll be fine. Not only do we not have that benefit in Made in Abyss, but also we have the 1-2 punch of these kids are in fact kids. They're not like young teenagers or like young adults that are having this gore happen to them. These are fucking 12-year-olds at most.
Yeah, they're 12. I mean, I guess Reg technically is ageless, but he has the mind and sensibilities of a 12-year-old.
Yeah, and then the second punch being, and this is entirely subjective, I care about the characters in Made in Abyss more than I care about the ReZero characters.
Same.
So
but also
I feel more bad for Rika when she's bleeding out of every orifice of her body and getting her arm smashed to bits than I do Subaru getting his head chopped off for the 10th time.
But also, I think that part of it is just the scenario itself, because in ReZero there tends to be a lot of just generic characters bleeding out. The most visceral image I have stuck in my head in terms of like the more frightening scenes is of Rem basically completely mauled, barely alive somehow. And that is pretty good. But
I don't know how far you got in season 2, but there's also a kind of terrifying image of well, spoilers by the way, of Subaru getting eaten to death by bunnies.
I've heard about that scene. I have not seen it, but I have heard about it. But
it is pretty horrifying. They take his I think his either his finger or his hand first. I think it's his whole hand, and then they just eat him alive.
So yeah, I guess that would be scary. But in Made in Abyss, the scenario is just so metal. It's like, okay, so your friend just got her hand impaled, right? So you gotta escape to safety. It's like designed to emotionally torture you, because what's the one way to get her to safety? Something that will make her bleed out of every orifice in her body. Well,
what's the one way out? What's the one way we can't go? Up.
So you end up being the one in the end who inflicts her crying tears of blood. You're the one who did that technically. So then she's bleeding out of her body.
Even when Rika was like, "Please, Reg, there's no other way. We have to go up."
Yeah, and so. All right, so she's bleeding out of every orifice in her body, right? And you're like, okay, what do I do now? How do I get the poison out? And she's like, all right, you're going to have to injure me even further. You're going to have to break my arm and cut it off, or else the poison is going to spread to the rest of my body. The emotional aspect of that.
Crunchy, are you a fan of classic SpongeBob at all?
What? Where did that come from?
Because there's this joke in one of the best episodes with the I don't know how familiar you are with classic SpongeBob. There with the episode where it's the imagination episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are just playing with their imagination in a box.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Okay, so do you remember the part where like Squidward kicks the box and then causes he thinks he causes an avalanche because they're playing like hiking, like climbing up a mountain, and they're like. They're like SpongeBob and Patrick like realistically like shivering, sobbing, being like, they're like barely alive. And Patrick's like, SpongeBob, I can't feel my legs. You're gonna have to cut them off with a saw. And SpongeBob's like, I can't do that, Patrick. Why? Because I've already sawed off my own arms. That's what I think of. I play that audio over in my head when I see this scene, and it makes me. It's how I cope.
Well, I guess, everyone has their own way to cope with trauma, and I guess that's one way.
You have to, Reg, you have to cut it off with a saw.
God,
except he doesn't have a saw in hand. He has a fucking pocket knife that he has to, chop, multiple hack away at her arm.
Just every single part of that scene is meant to damage you in every conceivable way.
He doesn't even just start hacking the arm. She's like, you have to break the arm first so you can cut it off. And he gets this big ass rock and then puts a wooden stick in her mouth, and it's
Yeah,
like you
like
hear the
gags
sickening
her.
snap, and she spits it out, and then the camera is pulled back in this long shot, and it's just Rico like screaming and like almost kind of pounding the ground, and Reg's arm kind of just in pain, and it's like, oh, it's so hard to sit through.
The part that made me like visibly uncomfortable and like sick to my stomach is when she specifically for some reason when she starts bleeding out of her ears. Like that is just disgusting.
Like the crazy thing about that is it's way more common to bleed out of your ears than it is to bleed out of your fucking eyes.
The eyes
like,
are also just...
Your ears are more likely, your eardrums are more likely to pop than the blood vessels in your eyes are likely to pop. Or likely to burst, more like. And it is sickening. It is when he goes to wipe them and it's like really goopy, and then like he wipes it away for just a second, and then more blood just comes it comes as quickly as he wipes it. Ugh.
You know, we sort of glossed over this, but I really love the design of Orby. It's not even like a
the Orb Piercer looks fucking sick.
It's not even like a more like generically terrifying design. No, I could see this in a context where it's like, look at this fascinating creature in the abyss.
It doesn't have a face. It just has like an orb with 5 holes in it.
But at the same time,
also like a spiky lion.
Like even though it isn't like, you don't look at it and go like, oh, yep, that thing's scary. Yeah, oh, that thing's evil and definitely going to try and kill the characters.
It's not what it looks like. It's what it's capable of.
Yeah. And like the way it bristles, and so it like starts taking up more and more of the screen as it just bristles more and more, and wheels its spikes and is like, has all of them pointed at the characters. That is terrifying. The fact that it has no face, that is terrifying. It is a really great design.
And it scares our heroes because it seemingly has this intuition of like knowing what the dangers are around it and seemingly predicting Reg's next move and cutting him off at every pass.
Yeah, and we later learned that
like,
it kinda, sorta, ish has the power to read the future.
Yeah, it reads the future in the sense of that we find out that it uses its face to like feel the force field of the abyss, and then the only way to beat it is to like trick it by committing your thoughts to one action and then betraying your thoughts and moving in a completely different way.
Yeah,
which is a really cool scene when it happens, when Reg commits it fully to looking up, so that way the monster positions itself in a way to like try to catch him right there, but then Reg moves the other way and just gets a hold of its face, and then it starts freaking the fuck out.
Well, I guess this is where we get to the next scene in the episode, which is when we get introduced to, I hope you agree with me here, the best character in the show, Nanachi.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt.
She's
Nanachi
so
is the best
fun.
character. I like, but before, like on my first watch, I was like, oh, this is a cool new character we're getting introduced to. Now that I've like gotten the full experience 5 years later, it's without question Nanachi is the best character in Made in Abyss.
So I know we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but I have a part of my notes where, and I have it underlined, the part where I quote everything Nanachi says. Look, this white thing is a nerve. Yes, Mitty, you're special too. Here's the list of ingredients. My awesome signature is on there too.
Yes, I made a note about that. I love how she's kind of like a goof and a troll, just being like she takes the time to like write out all the instructions, and we even see later that she does one of her things that she likes to do is to draw. So it makes sense that part of her signature that she doesn't even need to leave on the notes that she gives to Reg includes a drawing of her face as part of her signature. Oh, I love that. It's so good.
It's so stupid, but so lovable. Like, she says everything with like this complete nonchalant voice. She has this propensity towards sarcasm, but also she says so many silly things.
About anything.
Yeah. Although at the end it is revealed to mostly be a farce. She puts on this air of nonchalance when in actuality there are many, many things that faze her, and she is a deeply emotionally damaged person, ?
Yeah, I love one of the best moments I've seen from this, and like makes it clear to both the characters and the audience is that when she's like, "Oh, you nice, you got the mushrooms from the shroom bear. This will help cure Rico." And then Reg's like, "All right, what's everything else? Oh, that's for dinner." And it's like, "Well, what the fuck? Why'd you make me go get all this shit when Rico could die otherwise? When we're on the clock here." And she's like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do? Die of starvation while I'm looking after Rico? I can't get food in this while I'm in this state." And then Meg's like, "Oh, I guess you're right." And she's like, she says it to troll him at first, and she does even comment a few times, "Man, this dude's a fucking pushover." But like she there is logic behind everything that she says and does. She's not just doing it just to be a troll.
I mean, in fairness, she didn't have to, make him look after so many ingredients. I mean, unless we assume that, like, the demon fish is poisoned or something, and you need the other ingredients to get the poison out, but that's never specified. So I guess she is being a little bit of a dick in the sense that, she's making him go after all these ingredients when he really could have just caught, like, 5 demon fish, and that would have been enough. But in the end, even if you look at that as, like, an asshole move, she's a lovable asshole.
Yeah. Speaking of the mushrooms that they get, I think it was once again the world building going fucking crazy. How it's technically a parasite, but it's a parasite within a symbiotic relationship where they latch onto their host and they're full of nutrients. And how when their host is close to death, they will inject the nutrients within themselves into their host to keep them alive. Because if they're alive, they're more likely to spread around their. They didn't go into it specifically, but if I'm just inferring by how mushrooms and plants work normally, by just spreading their spores around and letting more of their mushroom selves grow elsewhere, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's sort of a twist on, like, there's a mushroom that does that in real life for, like, insects, and it got made
that
into
one straight up just turns you into a zombie.
Yeah, it's like a twist on that.
Yeah, it's a cool how it's like it's by definition a parasitic relationship, but also a helpful one.
Yeah, she even said it, symbiotic, parasitic but also symbiotic.
Yeah, then they have to cut the ones off the bears and then sew them to Rico's arm to have the nutrients inject themselves into Rico to keep her alive and stable and help the swelling of her hand go down, which we also glossed over. Her hand swelled up to like a fucking balloon.
Yeah, it's like
so much so that they could it hurt to get her glove off.
I mean, yeah, I imagine
she was like
pushing against
writhing.
her limbs, which are probably close to bursting considering how much her limb ballooned.
And like the blood like forcing out of her body like even caused the poison to like shoot out. So even when you think, okay, maybe the poison won't fuck her up that bad, nope, her entire hand is like 4 times its normal size.
This is a complete shitpost note I've written down, but Orby is apparently called Tama-chan, and all I can think of is Tama from Tomozaki-kun. I know you haven't seen
Why
that.
is it called Tama-chan?
Tama-chan. Yeah, that got translated to Orby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Nanachi's nickname for it.
Oh, okay. I completely tuned that out because I just see the subtitles. I go, okay, that's Orby now.
Yeah, I like calling it Orby. That's an adorable nickname. Whoever translated that, you did a good job.
And of course, we got to go over all of the trademark. God damn it! I should know his fucking name. Made in Abyss author.
I heard you typing.
Sakushi. Okay,
Sakushi.
Akihito Sakushi. Trademark Sakushi degeneracy, where Nanachi's like, well, I have this antidote that will help neutralize the poison, but we can't administer it orally, so we gotta put it up her ass.
There's this one
Get
part
her right up in there.
There's this one part at the end of the episode where Reg is sort of having this flashback, regaining his memories, but then, Nanachi like pats him on the shoulder or something and is like, "Oi, what's wrong with you? What's going on?" And then she says, "You were staring intently at a girl's pee-stained clothes." And all I could think was, is this an author insert?
Yup. I like even revisiting the series, I was like, oh, it's like it's weird. It does happen to Rico a weird amount of times, but it's like it's kind of like if we're going for grim dark realism, then yeah, I suppose this does help lend to the atmosphere. But like this last few sets of episodes in particular, it's like Rico, okay, let's count all the ways. Rico pissed herself with like bloody piss, got an antidote suppository up her ass, got stripped naked twice, if 3 times if we count the when she's going for that swim at the end of the series.
Peed
I'm trying to
again.
remember. Oh yeah,
while
she
being
pisses
restrained.
herself again
Yeah.
when while they're taking the mushrooms out. So that's like what, 4 different aspects at least of piss related incidents happening to Rico in the last few episodes. She's like I'm pretty sure that's like 1 piss per episode after episode
not
10.
all of them were pee related.
Like,
Some
we
of them
gotta
were
fill a quota.
suppositories, and like just being naked. So I guess general Sakushi degeneracy, if you want to call it that. But the thing is, each time it's like kind of narratively and thematically justified, and so it's like it's weird, but it's also
is it narratively justified that Reg needs to pop a boner when he's swimming with Rico naked in that hot spring?
I mean, that one's just kind of like an endearing scene in general, so I let it slide.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. It is Crunchy Bagels finds it
I will
endearing
kill
when
you.
12-year-olds
I will
pop boners around other
I will
12-year-olds.
annihilate you. You are dead to me, NeonManta. Sleep with one eye open.
When they find you in court, they'll use this exact audio clip.
Honestly, I don't think I'll be charged for the lolicon stuff. I think I'll be charged for murdering you.
Oh no, it's okay. I have a note in here that I guess I'll just jump ahead now. Why the fuck did they make Mitty so stacked?
You know,
to throw
I
myself
didn't-
under the
I
bus
didn't
real quick.
I didn't want to say that, but I noticed it. I didn't want
It's
to
like-
notice it,
I
but I did.
and like I didn't want to notice it either because she's also like what, no older than, she's like 10 at that point. But like why, like, and it's also because all she's wearing for her top is like a red piece of cloth that just covers her chest, and that's it. She's got bare shoulders, bare midriff.
Well, Neon, I guess I'll
she's,
be
like,
murdering you
fucking-
in prison.
We will have the broken knife fight. I don't understand it. Like, and it's the one time where it's like there is no narrative reason why Mitty had to be so endowed for a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. Although there aren't any
I
like
guess-
fan service like close up.
Yeah, that they don't
Yeah.
sexualize her.
Yeah, it's just
They
a
don't.
thing.
It's important to note they never sexualize any of
So,
the children.
I wouldn't say cancel Made in
Well-
Abyss or like, oh, it's so problematic. You know.
Well, I guess if you get off I guess if you're the kind of like disgusting freak to get off to both child porn and Guro, then Made in Abyss episode 13
Oh,
is
no.
like your 2 girls 1 cup.
Fair enough.
Which brings us, in fact, to Mitty.
All right, hold on.
Which,
Before that, I
we-
just want to say real quick, my only note for episode 12 is the pink-haired pharmacist is so hot.
She is really hot, and I deadass forgot she existed. When I like rewatched the show, I was like, wait, who the fuck is this?
Because she
I don't remember this
she
at
has a
all.
great character design and she shows up for like 2 minutes.
5 minutes at most.
And she's so hot.
And like, okay, also while we're on the subject, what was with the point of the birthday death thing? Was there like a grander point to that, or are we gonna get to that like later in the show?
I think we're going to get to that later in the show. I
'Cause,
mean,
like,
I can't imagine
why
what
did
it would
white-haired
be.
baby friend be like so feverish when he was on Earth, and then they take him to the boat, and he's like, it was almost like he never had a fever. Like, what was the purpose? I still can't think of it.
I can't think of it either, but honestly, if the purpose was just an excuse to show the pink-haired pharmacist lady, it will be justified in my eyes.
And all right, so now we gotta circle back to Mitty, because now everything going forward about the show is gonna revolve around Mitty and Nanachi. And we're introduced to Mitty as a fellow hollow, as Nanachi describes themselves as. But whereas Nanachi is just a human who's become this bunny girl, Mitty does barely looks. She looked like she was never a human before.
She's ditto, but nightmare mode.
She is, yeah, nightmare fueled Ditto. That is a good way to describe it.
She's basically a blob, and okay, real quick, this is kind of off topic, but Mitty's horrifying backstory and her horrifying design make her hilarious whenever she's used in a meme. I've seen way too many awful jokes at Mitty's expense.
Can we play now? Can we play now? Full Metal Alchemist fans have one joke. I do want to note also that there was a flashback to Nanachi and Bondrewd, and Bondrewd was celebrating the creation of a new cartridge, and this was totally lost on me in season 1 because you'll have no context for it, but now, knowing what happens in the movie, I was like, oh shit. They were planning this shit out.
Yeah, all of the Bondrewd stuff was really planned.
Yeah, like now we also get introduced properly to Bondrewd in these flashbacks, as he is the linchpin of both Nanachi and Mitty's story, as how Nanachi and Mitty were both orphans from like different orphanages, and Bondrewd comes and it's like recruiting. It's interesting that they never take them they make it a point to show that they never take them by force, it looks like. They just invite, hey, if there are any children in these orphanages who want to benefit from journeying into the abyss, who want to like journey into the abyss just like the Cave Raiders do, come forward now. And both Nanachi and Mitty do so.
They make a point to where, at least I think this is what they're getting at. I don't remember the movie particularly well, but what I think they're getting at is that Bondrewd thinks he's doing it for the greater good. Where like he's like, I never.
Oh, he's convinced.
Yeah, he's convinced. Like, this is for the good of everyone. Like he makes a point, right? Like I never tricked anyone. I said you were going here to go down into the abyss to benefit everyone.
See,
there was no
He never
trick.
lied.
He
never lied, but he wasn't entirely truthful with them.
It's a lie by omission, but he doesn't think of it that way. He's taking all these, like, when you think of, like, okay, these adult elites who hold, like, this high position in society, recruit a bunch of children and take them out to their hideout. What do you immediately think of? Some very not good stuff. But Bondrewd doesn't do that because he thinks he's doing the right thing. He's like, oh, we're just going to
make Unit 731 look like a fucking joke.
He's
with
like,
these children, we're going to do a lot of trolling.
Oh, that is a lot of trolling. So he's doing sure, he's killing them off, but in his head, he's like, we're just doing the bare minimum in order to help mankind and, help this entire society journey to the bottom of the abyss. He isn't doing any weird stuff. I mean, okay, he is doing weird stuff, but not weird.
Oh no,
stuff.
it's very questionable.
it's not questionable. It's immoral.
It's not weird. It's immoral.
Yeah.
But like when we get to the movie, it does make a stronger case for Bondrewd. Be like, is Bondrewd 100% in the wrong?
Yes.
Which is definitely something I'm looking forward to when we get to the movie.
Yeah, I can't wait for that either, because even though I've said this like 5 times before, I've seen the anime 5 times, but I have only seen the movie once, and I don't remember it that well, so I'm very excited to get to the movie. The gist of the backstory is basically Mitty, Nanachi, their children, they get brought into Bondrewd's experiments, and he puts them in this chamber, and he's like, all right, so this chamber basically directs the curse.
You're jumping a little too forward. We got to establish Nanachi and Mitty's friendship first, just like the show does.
Okay, so they're friends, right? Mitty basically approaches Nanachi, and she's like, yo, wanna be friends? And Nanachi's like, okay.
Not really,
but okay.
She's not really she's kind of resistant to it being because Mitty is just so open and friendly. I don't think this was no accident. She's supposed to be kind of like Rico, and but she's even more confident than Rico was at her age when she's introducing herself as like, hey, I'm Mitty, future White Whistle.
Yeah,
and it's like it would just be the bee's knees if something were to happen to her.
Even if we didn't know that Mitty was going to turn into that, the flags were there and they were stacked. She said she wanted to be a white whistle when she was older. She said she wanted to venture into the abyss with Nanachi. Like, even without the prior knowledge that she was going to turn into Mitty, I'm pretty sure we would have figured she's not going to stay around for long.
Yeah, and you know what the most fucked up part is? This isn't the last time where a character says, I want to be a white whistle, and then something ironically tragic happens to them. This one in a more literal sense, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, so after they become friends and, become best friends, buddy old pals, they go into the chambers.
They have this incredibly cute shot of Mitty holding up the blanket with her leg while Nanachi's reading to her.
Yeah, and the chamber directs the curse towards Mitty, and Nanachi is receiving less of it.
It's this two-pod elevator, and Bondrewd says, all right, so here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna put Mitty in one pod and Nanachi in the other. Mitty is going to take the brunt of the curse. We're going to drop you both down into the pit of the 6th layer, and we're going to pull you back up. And we're going to take all of the bad juju that's going to go on to Nanachi and put it all on Mitty so she gets the curse twofold to see if Nanachi will survive. And then freaking sweet Lois, man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. It is the most horrifying thing that has happened in the show thus far.
It's up there with like the infamous episode 10 scene.
No, this is worse. Like, episode 10 is conventionally horrifying. This is worse because, like, I would rather just slowly, like, even if I'm being poisoned and having my arm broken off, even if I were going to die from that, I would rather that happen to me than suffer what Mitty suffered.
Mitty basically gets turned into, like we said, Nightmare Ditto, and she is unkillable, no longer human, has no real comprehension of her surroundings, cannot think, can only feel. And what she is feeling is never-ending pain, and she will never die until... Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. She does end up dying, but for all intents and purposes, she is unkillable.
Yeah, and I can't gloss over it at all because I can't talk about it enough. Mitty is the first person to make Nanachi happy. She's like, we see her in the orphanage. She's miserable. Her only thought is to go down into the bottom of the abyss just because she's curious, like most, to see what's at the bottom. If only in her case though, if only to see just give her some kind of glimpse of anything but her current shitty life in the orphanage. And when she meets Mitty, she's the first person to make her smile, to make her happy. She has found a friend and a person, a reason to live outside of just this journey to the abyss. So then, when Bondrewd drops them both into the 6th layer, and then they see all of the other children that he's experimented on before, all Mittified, and because he's just throwing them away like the rejects they are. And remember, we find out later that they cannot be killed, or at the very least, if they can be killed and Mitty's the exception, then they're suffering all down there at the pit. And then, as Mitty realizes what she's going to become, her last action as a human, in the final moments of her humanity, is to look over at Nanachi, tears pouring down her eyes, and just trying to comfort her, tell her that she'll be all right, and one day and Nanachi to be let my soul return to you one day. And then they're pulled up, and then Mitty is fucking screaming in agony. She's her flesh is melting and burning, and she's begging Nanachi through the glass, please kill me. I can't take it. Please let me die.
Is just so
horrifying.
Yeah, skin crawling. Specifically that she says, please kill me, because the show...
Nanachi watches the whole time!
Yeah. The entire...
That's not okay!
The entire show is basically saying, dying would be better than what Mitty is going through. And, she pretty much realizes that immediately, and she's like, please just make it end. Kill me now. I'd rather not be conscious for this.
It's her last fucking thought as a human before she is stripped of all personality, sanity, and self. That's not fucking okay.
And then after that, we get a few scenes of Nanachi basically becoming Bondrewd's
assistant.
Yeah, but his experiment assistant, where she's overlooking all the stuff he's doing and presumably learning about all the stuff Bondrewd is trying to do. Probably completely horrified out of her mind. Like, I have to help out this person who has ruined my life and completely, killed.
Because, like, where else could she possibly go?
Like, worse than killed her best friend, her only friend, even. She has to watch as, like, Bondrewd basically maims this once human and is like, oh, look, she's impervious to damage. Didn't know that. It's like, God.
And how fucked up is it that the first time that Nanachi finds out that Midi is pretty much immortal, that she can regenerate from any injury, and like seeing the bloody pile of mush that she becomes after Bondrewd's like, yeah, we smashed her to fucking pieces, and she still was able to regenerate, and like just seeing it, like, even though she can't recognize herself as like the person she once was, she can still feel pain.
Yeah,
and it's just basically like an animal, and it's like can suffer from the pain, and like they've just been doing all of these horrible things to her. Even when she's in that state, Nanachi can't fucking take it. So we don't find out exactly how she was able to, but she runs off with Midi into the fourth lair. She escapes Bondrewd's lair, and then she spends the rest of her days trying all manner of methods from the abyss to kill her, but to no avail. And how fucked is it that in her pursuit to end her misery, we see that Nanachi, not with the best of intentions, was inflicting more pain and suffering onto her, and how much it broke her heart.
It's hitting at that thing again that I was mentioning earlier, where like the horror of episode 10 is that Reg is inflicting that onto Riko. Sort of the same thing where Nanachi, in her attempts to help Midi, only hurts her and ends up killing a guy. Like, the guy, it's sort of implied that the guy would have died anyway. Like, he had just been hurt, but still, she's like, all right, I'm just gonna kill you right now so you don't have to be in more pain. Sorry I kept you alive in pain for no reason. Like, how messed is that?
And then fucking, yeah, and you were saying that it was like parallel with how Reg was trying to help Riko, but ended up inflicting more pain. Reg was inflicting all of that damage to Riko to try to save her life. Nanachi's doing it to try to end Midi's.
Yeah. And so basically what this is all building to is that Nanachi saw Reg use the incinerator on the orb piercer. And so she saw that and she was like, oh my God.
It's the first thing that we see in the series that like actually bewilders her. She's smiling and like putting on her troll attitude most of the time, but then when she sees the incinerator, she's like, holy shit.
This could kill Midi. Because I guess Bondrewd had some sort of thing that basically took out Midi's eye and like permanently. Like, he was trying out all this stuff and he took out Midi's eye and he was like, this could kill Midi, so we're not going to kill Midi. We're just going to leave her around, eh? And so...
I mean, we got to experiment on her.
Yeah. And so... it's basically the same sort of weapon as Reg's incinerator, except Reg's incinerator is presumably more powerful and goes farther. And so Nanachi's like, please kill Mitty. And Reg is at first hesitant, but he eventually agrees, just like everyone else, that dying is the best fate for Mitty at this point. There is no keeping her alive.
How fucking perfect is the final scene of episode 12 to be like Reg's like, oh, thank you so much, Nanachi. Anything you ask of me, and I'll if it's within my power, I'll do it. And she's like, well, there is one thing. And he's like, anything. And she just says straight to his face, please kill Mitty. And like the music drops, Reg's smile slowly fades, and he's like, what?
I still remember my first time watching that scene as like my very first time watching the show, like completely shocked and immediately hitting on to the next episode. Like, oh my god, I need to watch this right now. There's no not
I had
watching
to wait
this.
a fucking week.
Oh, you poor thing. You poor
I was
poor
watching
thing.
it week to week. Yeah, and Nanachi fears that if she were to die before Midi, then she'd live the rest of her life suffering with no possible way to die, because, like, no one would know how to kill her. No one know if she even could be killed. And she wants to kill her to prevent any more pain inflicted upon her, even if it seems like Midi is living a relatively peaceful life right now.
And what we later learn is that Nanachi was planning on killing herself as soon as Midi was dead because, you know, Nanachi is at this point a broken individual from all the horrors she experienced from Bondrewd and seeing her best friend get turned into an inhuman blob. And Reg is basically like, all right, I'll kill Midi for you, except you can't kill yourself.
You have to live
afterwards."
on.
Yeah. You have
And then even Nanachi's like, wow, how cruel. Fine. And then she even says it with like a sad,
Yeah.
downhearted smile, being like you're really gonna force me to live on.
I feel like that scene
in
particular puts into perspective how far down we've gone from the happy days at the beginning of the Abyss with the Bright-Eyed Adventures. We went from Rico, you know, being enthusiastic about the adventure, which to be fair, she still is. But now we're looking at people who genuinely want to kill themselves and are sad that they can't die.
It's very fitting that the deeper we go into the Abyss, the deeper we fall into insanity and moral ambiguity and complications. And then it all comes to a head in the fucking euthanasia scene. And I was saying in the last podcast how it didn't affect me as much as I think it should have the first time I watched it 5 years ago because of a real life event that was happening to me around the like exact same time. Between I think it was episode 12 and 13 at the time, like just before the euthanasia scene came out, my family dog that I lived with, like basically grew up with, from age, I don't know, 5, like somewhere around age 5 to up until age 17, we had to put him down. He was getting too old. He wasn't eating as much as he used to. He was getting incredibly skinny. He couldn't even walk anymore. He could barely support his own weight. Like when I took him out for a walk, which used to be his favorite fucking thing in the world, you could say the word walk in any context, and if he was within earshot, he would like pick up, run over, and be like, "Hey, you gonna take me for a walk?" Because it was his favorite fucking thing in the world. And on the last walk that I took him for, he couldn't, like, when we got down, like, only one way down the block, he, like, collapsed. And I had to carry him home. And I was like, that fucking, like, destroys you on the inside. To be like, oh, that was, like, the moment that I knew. Like, oh, my dog is near, like, and I fucking loved my dog. And, like, now he is nearing the end of his life. So, in between episodes 12 and 13, we took him to the vet, and we had him euthanized to let him go peacefully. And it made me sad, and it depressed me for a while, because like it was like losing a member of the family. And then when when episode 13 rolled around, and I saw like the whole scene, like it didn't hit me as hard as I think it should have, because I had just basically lived it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Now watching it 5 years later, it hit me and I nearly cried. Like I actually teared up this time.
I didn't cry this time, or even really tear up, just because I've seen this show at this point so many times. But my first time going through that scene, like, destroyed me. Like, I was near tears. Like, it is such a fantastically shot, such a fantastically written scene. It's just very heartfelt and emotional, and like
Dude,
the
they
best
bring
thing.
her bed outside and surround her with all of her favorite fucking toys and stuffed animals.
Dude, and like Reg, he isn't blasting it in like a beam. It's just like this circle of fire that engulfs just that entire set. Like so
And like,
good.
and even as he's charging it up, like the tears are already like welling up in his eyes, because like he's still putting down a life, and there is still like the moral quandary of like, is it still right to take away Midi's life, even if she's like still, if like, is she still somewhat conscious? Is there like, are we 100% sure that Midi, as the person we once know, is completely gone and never to come back again? And as he's about to deliver the big blast, Nanachi yells out, runs over to say one last goodbye. She can't contain herself and apologizes for letting her suffer this long. And that was the moment. Was like, yep. That's where the tears were welling up in my eyes, and like Reg's crying as he's charging up the shot once more. And then they blow her away. Midi's gone. Rico was dreaming of Midi the whole time in this weird like flesh sack, and just recounts only dreaming of like seeing a girl suffering as she did and just doing her best to comfort her just by being with her.
Something interesting about the dreams, all right? So we can presume all right, so if we take it a certain way, let's just assume that Midi somehow like has the power to, you know, impart this knowledge on Rico through being her friend, because that seems to be what's happening. And like some sort of like psychic connection or whatever. And Rico
Like,
basically
it's
described,
tied to the abyss.
yeah, probably. And Rico basically recalls her entire dream where like she felt trapped, but then and basically being trapped was, you know, Midi feeling trapped in that body, and then she saw, you know, Midi in the dream and, you know, tried to comfort her and was like, oh, Midi's in even more agony than I am right now. And then she says something at the end. And then I remembered what it was I wanted to be one day, and a few other lines of that nature. And what that implies to me is that in Midi's very last moments, she remembered who she was. She remembered her identity, her past, and everything that had happened to her up to that moment. Almost sort of like at the very end of dementia, right? It's common for patients to remember a lot about themselves in like their very final moments of like battling like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. It sort of reminds me of that, where Midi remembers everything in her very last moments as her body is being consumed by the fire, and then she's gone like that.
Yeah, I didn't think of it like that, but that is a very good way of thinking of it. There's this game called Spiritfarer, where the exact scenario you described happens to one of the characters, where they suffer from dementia, and just before they pass away, they turn to the main character and be like, oh, hey, your name here, like as showing that they remember him, and then they pass along.
Yeah, I think it's called terminal lucidity, and it's a really bizarre real thing.
And then at the very end of it all, after many tears and skinny dipping in healing waters and removing of the mushrooms which scar Rico's arm and makes her piss herself again to bring us back down to earth.
One of my notes, actually, my note during that scene is just lolly piss. No, no further content.
Don't worry, we're gonna be able to add Shota piss to it very soon.
True.
We have gained our third party member in Nanachi, who has now been like, I have found a new reason to live, and it's with these new friends that I've made. And she's like, Midi, hold on for me a little longer, because I found a new reason to keep going.
You know, I've always imagined like the Midi death scene is happening like 3/4 of the way into the episode, but looking at like the timeline, there's like half an episode after that scene, basically. It happens pretty early on, surprisingly. Then there's a
they
huge
gotta get
winding
Nanachi
down.
associated with Rico
Yeah.
at least a little bit.
Yeah, before she joins the party. And the scene where all the characters are, taking a bath in the lake and there's like the bugs that are like cleaning them, or like the fish, I think actually. Yeah, fish.
Yeah, they were fish.
And like Nanachi's looking at like a blushing Reg, like, go into the lake with her. Come on, you gotta. I'm gonna be lookout, and just teasing him to hell and back. God, that is such a fun scene. It's just such a relaxing, sort of winding down period from the emotional high that is Middy's death. And I love everything about it. Even if you call it sus, don't care. It's cute.
I also love the scene where Nanachi eats Riko's cooking, aka she eats good food for the first time, and she's like nearly brought to tears by it because she's just been eating like gruel for the last few years.
That is also quite the good scene. And then the final scene of the episode is of a balloon. They make a balloon basically and send it off into the upper heights of the abyss, hoping it'll reach the surface and hoping they can get a message back to their friends. And I don't think the show actually shows what message she's trying to send. Did you catch that?
No.
Yeah.
No, they just send a package in a balloon up to the top, where it gets caught like in all sorts of trouble. It does get beat up. It does get saved by Marulk and the gang, and even Ozen, who's looking on smiling. And then it ends up with Nat and Shiggy and the first layer. I'm sure that will. I forget if it. I'm pretty sure it doesn't like happen in the movie, but I'm pretty sure if not, then it'll happen in season 2.
Yeah, like we'll learn.
We'll find out exactly what it is.
Yeah. I want to see all their reactions to it. Well, I know we got a bit of like Marulk and Ozen's reaction, but I want to know like what do Nat, Shiggy, and Kiyui feel about this presumably letter and what they've been sent. Do they believe it? Well, they're probably going to believe it. And like, does it make them emotional? Probably will. I just want to see that reaction. It's gonna be super cathartic.
And so now our duo, now turned trio, sets out on their journey to the 5th layer, to Bondrude, who has noticed that Middy's heat signature, whatever. I guess they're able to track that shit with special lights in their layer. Found out that it's gone out, and are like, you've done well, Nanachi. I can't wait to see you soon.
All right, real subtle detail here. All right, so basically Nanachi says that most hollows are killed off. Middy is the only one that's actually invincible, at least up to that point. What these lights suggest is that Bondrude has been doing this experiment now dozens of times, and that there are dozens of invincible Middys out there, and that he's keeping track of them all. At least that's what I got.
I didn't think about that. I kind of thought it was either like that, or also maybe all of those MIDI likes down at the bottom of the elevator tube that we saw might also just be invincible, and he just never bothered with them. I don't know.
I thought at least the implication I got was that Middy was the only invincible one, but it is a bit, more of a subtext than anything.
And with that, we have reached the end of season 1 of Made in Abyss. What you said, the 5th or the 6th time through? I forget.
5th.
All right. What'd you think of it now? You also had like a person to talk to with it for the entire journey.
Well, like I said earlier, my initial impression of the show the first time through was like a strong 8 out of 10. That over the course of like another few rewatches, it like at its peak, I rated it literally a 10 out of 10. Since then, I've acknowledged some more of its flaws and been like, okay, it's more like a strong 9, and I still stand by the strong 9 statement. Enrapturing world building, incredible atmosphere. The characters are all pretty endearing. Even if they aren't the most intricately written, they're still a lot of fun. It's just overall, good directing, good visuals. I love the world they're in. Just a really great time, emotional when it needs to be. The Nanachi arc really sells the show hard. Like those 4 episodes, one of them being double length, are just chef's kiss perfection.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat where I went into this being like, all right, when I watched season 1 5 years ago, I gave it an 8 out of 10, and now I'm coming out the other side being like, yep, my thoughts have pretty much remained the same. I can appreciate all of the details more, but I can also pick apart the things I don't like more. And so it's still kind of an 8 out of 10 for me. A very strong 8 out of 10, mind you. Which, yes, viewers, if you're keeping track at home, I do think My Dress Up Darling is a better show than Made in Abyss.
I
but-
was thinking that exact thing. So we're a bit inverted
Well-
on this one. I've got Made in Abyss as the 9 out of 10 and Dress Up Darling as a 7.
Well, I think Made in Abyss. No, not Made in Abyss. I think Dress Up Darling, like it edges out in being, it has themes that touch, like, it's definitely a bias thing. It touches on themes more closely hit it to home. Like, if we're comparing narratives, Made in Abyss is 1,000 times more intriguing, and like I'm more eager to see what happens next than to see what'll happen next in Dress Up Darling. But if we're talking like themes and overall enjoyment, then I give the edge to Dress Up Darling.
It's kind of shocking how many times I've seen Made in Abyss, because, like, yes, it's one of my favorite shows, but I'd also, like, when I think of, like, my all-time favorites, normally Made in Abyss isn't the first one to come to mind. It's more like Barakamon, Dragon Maid, Sengatsu no Lion, like Azumanga Daioh. I haven't rewatched Azumanga Daioh once, which is a crime. I know.
I haven't seen Azumanga Daioh once.
Well, you got to get on that. K-On!
Going into the movie next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna name another show in K-On!, which I haven't even finished. Like, God, I need to finish K-On!, and yet I've seen.
How far are you in K-On?
I watched the first season and the OVA.
Okay, so there's still like, is there a K-On! Movie, or am I making that
there is
up?
a K-On! Movie. There's a second
And it's like-
season,
it's-
another OVA,
and it's like
a
canon. It's not
Yeah.
like a compilation movie, right?
Yeah, it's the canon finale to the series.
Okay, so maybe K-On! Will make its way onto the list one day. Going into the movie next time, I have an interesting history with the movie, because like the first time, like my initial impression after coming out of the movie, I was like, I gave it a 7 because I didn't get Bondrewed at first, admittedly, but like after I had time to chew on it, I even though I still have only seen it the one time when it came out in the West in 2020, I retroactively bumped it up to a 8 out of 10, being like, okay, I chewed on it, I stewed on it, and it's definitely better than I gave it credit for at first, and is on par with the rest of the series. Now that I have the first season like fresh in my mind to directly compare it against, I'm looking forward to see if maybe this time my opinion will change.
All right, so my history with the movie was when I watched it, that was during one of the times when I had Made in Abyss season 1 as a 10, and I actually gave the movie a 9 because I thought that it had done a few things not so great that I thought brought it down from where the anime was. Particularly, I was annoyed with the characterization or lack thereof of Prushka, parentheses, or no, I'm not going to go there. That's a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, Prushka. I was a bit annoyed with her characterization, or yeah, lacking characterization. Some of the plot points hit a little too quick to where I didn't really understand what was happening at certain points. And later, when I lowered Made in Abyss to a 9, I ended up lowering the movie to an 8 before raising it back to a 9, and I think that's where I have it right now. So it'll be interesting to actually rewatch the film and know where my thoughts lie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to order the Blu-ray and have it delivered so I can watch it on my TV, because I don't like watching movies on my computer. I much prefer watching them on a bigger screen. I'll watch TV shows on my computer, but that's it. And even then, I'd still prefer to do it on my television.
No, I could try and get the Dawn of the Deep Soul movie Blu-ray. Dawn of the Deep Soul Blu-ray.
Do you have a Blu-ray player?
Yeah, I have a Blu-ray
I suppose you
player.
have. If you,
yeah, I watched.
You have a PS4 in your house, right?
Not a PS4.
Wait, I was gonna say, do you have like a dedicated Blu-ray player,
Yeah,
or are you like
dedicated.
me? Do you use your PlayStation?
No, I have a dedicated Blu-ray player.
Okay, I technically have. Well, before I sold my PS4 Pro to my friend when I got my PS5, I had three. I would have had three Blu-ray players in my house. Now I only have two: my PS3 and my PS5. But using my PS3 now would be redundant because the PS5 is always plugged in.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we have reached the end of the Made in Abyss Season 1 podcast. Any closing thoughts?
This is the most my voice has hurt after the end of an episode. That is my closing thought.
This is even the longest. This
isn't
even the longest we've gone. This is only gonna be like 100 minutes and change.
Yeah, but for some reason it really hurts.
Well, we did a lot of talking. And if you want to hear us talk more, like the video, tell us what you thought down in the comments about Made in Abyss. If you're excited for Season 2, and subscribe to the channel. We've got the Spy X Family coming. We got Bleach coming. We're probably gonna dive into the big exchange of March Comes Like a Lion and Owl House real soon.
I can't wait for that one.
I don't think aside from just making progress in our respective personal projects, nothing else has changed in regards to the making thereof.
Yeah, the video's still sort of in the workshop. Will probably take over a month from here to come out, but hey, subscribe and wait that month, please.
Alright, this is NeonManta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And you'll see us next time.